Today we are reading from selective passages from the book of Psalms, and it's interesting that these are written in conjunction with the specific experiences that David is encountering as he confronts Saul and many of the difficulties of life. The book of Psalms was one of the most beloved, popular books of the Bible. And why? Because it speaks out of our life experiences through the eyes of godly men. We identify with these struggles. Powerful because David, who penned many of the songs, reveals the power and the faithfulness of God and our constant need to overcome through spontaneous praise. Many of these psalms were written out of David's difficult experiences that we have been reading about in 1 Samuel as he confronts Saul and all of the rejection and difficulty, the temptation to assume the control of these difficult scenarios. From experience, David tells us in Psalms 7 to trust in God and to plead to God for his deliverance, to invite God to evaluate our heart's motives and to acknowledge God as our true defender. Praise and worship is David's response in trouble, and he learns through adversity what it means to really, truly cry out to God. In Psalms 27, David outlines a tenfold confidence in God. Look at it and you will be able to number 10 things that he speaks about in reference to our confidence to God. God is our light and our salvation. Whom shall we fear? David sees his enemies stumble and falls. He has a growing confidence in God. His primary life objective is to dwell in the house of the Lord and to see the Lord's beauty. He speaks of a fourfold confidence in the midst of trouble in Psalms 27:5. David presses in and he offers spontaneous sacrifices of praise and joy. In his trouble, he learns to wait on God's timing, to be strengthened in the Lord, not in the arm of flesh, but the arm of God's provision. He often makes mention of the secret place of God's presence and certainly refers back to Jonathan, his beloved friend, who pointed him to a secret place. And no doubt in that secret place, he experienced the glory of God. Again and again, he encourages a crying out. This is more than a passive type of simple little prayer, but a desperate plea, a desperate literal voicing or crying out to God. He shares the rich rewards of seeking God in adversity, that God is attracted to a broken and a contrite spirit. He assures us that the righteous will face many afflictions, but that God will indeed deliver us out of them all. David prophesies and pointing to Jesus, probably something that he's not even aware of what the meaning of it might be, or of whom he is making reference to. But he says this, not a bone will be broken. He will guard them all in Psalms 34:20. He also speaks of reference to Jesus as a prophetic word in Psalms 27:2. The wicked come against me to eat up my flesh, my enemies and foes, they stumbled and fell. Amazing and remarkable that David was able to write these psalms under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, speaking of things yet to come and maybe not even recognizing or knowing specifically what he is talking about. How remarkable that David was willing to humble himself in adversity when it would have been easy to have assumed control, but he surrendered over to the will of God. He learned about the power of God through suffering. Jesus experienced the full force of such pain, suffering, and rejection, something that we now are examining this week as we review the life, the death, burial, and the triumphant resurrection of Jesus Christ. But Jesus yielded to the will of the Father. What looked like weakness, defeat, and death gave opportunity to the power and the glory of God. You and I learn life's lessons through the difficulties that we face and how to surrender to the full control of God, to trust in the Lord with all of our heart, and to lean not on our own understanding. And David would acknowledge God, and he would put his trust in God, and he would become out victorious because he refused to trust in his own power, strength, and wisdom, but depended fully upon God.